give you the green light, you can go for it, but I just need to get this started first. But you'll hear the echo, you'll know what I'm talking about, then it'll go away. Give you the green light. Okay, we should, yep, it says live. Good to go.
Okay, it is 7:02. And we will officially start the meeting. And Jerry and Liz, you will be voting members tonight. We have several members who are not in attendance. And before we do anything further, we're going to need somebody to take minutes because Tom is absent.
I just started. I can do it.
Okay, so Diane will take minutes. Thank you. Okay, so the first thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. Did everybody have a chance to review them?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to put them on the screen.
Yeah, why don't you?
And you guys, you can see the screen, can you?
Yes.
This weekend.
Okay, just making sure.
Okay, so there are no corrections, no additions. Can I have a motion then to accept the minutes?
I'll move to accept last month's minutes.
Okay, Diane, motion to accept the minutes. We need a second. Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. Okay, so the previous minutes are approved. Thank you.
Just say what you're saying. Is there everyone who approves say aye?
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Do we need a vote?
Yeah, you do vote.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you do
Sorry
vote.
about that. We need. Can
All in
everybody,
favor?
can everybody who approves the minutes, please say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
So motion to approve the minutes
Motion to approve the minutes.
and then a second and then all in favor, aye.
All in.
Any
Okay.
any
Diane made the
opposition?
motion. Jerry seconded. All in favor said aye. Minutes are approved.
Anyone in opposition?
Anyone in opposition?
No.
Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is a report on the solar law. Liz, did you?
Actually, I will give you the update. So we're bringing in a legal advisor that's going to go through and really look at the law, make sure that we have it'll stand up basically.
Somebody besides
The
Dave Spitzer?
name, yes. So the name of the company is Zoflin. It's ZOGHLIN Group. So Zoflin Group. If you were to Google them, you'll see that with almost without exception, they're the ones that are on the, they defend or they support communities that have opposition basically to solar farms often. But you know, they're fair and balanced and everything else. Obviously so they're gonna look at our law and just say, can we defend it? Is it defensible? And what have you. But anyone that wants to Google them, in case you're concerned, that they're, you know.
Will they, is the timing of that going to be before July when the sun sets?
So the expiration of the moratorium is the 18th of July. In the event that we do have to go over, and if you watch every meeting, I'm adamant, I'm really pushing hard to try and meet the deadline. I think we can still meet the deadline, which means that 10 days before, so on the 19th, because the 18th, the day it expires, is a Sunday. So the 19th is actually what we will consider the expiration date. That is also a town board meeting night, regular meeting night. Our goal would be to have the public hearing on that night, basically. So, but, you know, we're going to have to see what the public hearing happens. It's very possible that we'll do an extension on that night in the event that, you know, we get lots of feedback and there's a need to continue to work on the law a little bit. So we're really trying to do it before the 19th if at all possible. Hopefully they'll be able to review it fairly quickly so that we'll have maybe hopefully instead of the 19th, the first, realistically, it's going to be very tough to hit the dates. So we may need to do an extension, but we need to make sure that we're doing it right too. So
So you would want, when the public hearing takes place, you would want the
It'll be the final version. The public hearing will be on the final version, basically. But, the purpose of the public hearing is to hear what the feedback is. The town board would probably then take that information and decide if further changes are required, basically. So, to be fair to the developers, that's why I'm really pushing hard to try and get this done within the time window. But, it's really tight at this point. It's a pretty big undertaking. And, I can't make any excuses. The fact is, it's just a very big undertaking, and 6 months we've really had a lot of meetings, and including today again, earlier today, we had a workshop discussing this. So, we've been working on it diligently. It's not that we're dragging our feet trying to delay for any reason. It's just, the reality is this is a pretty big undertaking. It's a major rewrite of the law. I could rip through the revisions if anyone
Well,
wanted
I
to.
wanted to hear from Liz regarding the addendum that I know a writing group was formed to write that. Liz, did you want to report on that? Liz?
She did join us, right?
Yeah, I'm here. You asked if I have anything additional to add, right?
Yeah, was it specifically the addendum that your group
Yeah.
was drafting?
So let me see here what the date was. I've got to exit my, let me get over to my email that I had pulled up here. Okay, so on June 8th, I submitted on behalf of a group including myself, Bev Kinney, Roger Cook, and Tom Thompson, who met earlier that week. I believe we met on Monday, June 7th. What I gathered to be a first draft of the addendum, which included an introduction, a section presenting and explaining. This was just a list of the proposed content, by the way, based on our conversation that we had at the meeting. A section presenting and explaining the use of town-proof solar site pollinator / foraging habitat scorecard, and the benefits of adhering to the scorecard. A section listing resources, or a resource listing common native plants with heights specified, which was a resource that was taken from a particular, I believe it was the council, it was either I'd have to actually look at the attachments again. But anyway, these are all resources that are grabbed from professional reference points. So another resource called Trees for Pollinators, that's from Citizen Coalition for Wildlife and Environment. There's a resource on invasive species from the Pollinator Conservation Association, a resource from the Ag and Markets Guidelines, a reference to the a reference to the Ag and Markets Guidelines pamphlet as just a recommended comprehensive tool that's available but not included in the addendum. And then, a few other things. And then there was some back and forth after that. And Judy Schmidt, I'm sorry, I don't mean to leave her out because she was instrumental in the final communication, which really added a lot of solid mass to the proposal of that first draft. And she basically said that she thought that an outline for a vegetation management plan, a scorecard, and assessment schedule should be sufficient as the addendum to the law. And the vegetation management plan would include several points, which would be goals and objectives in terms of desired ecological communities to be established on site, desired outcomes, etc. A section on regulatory compliance, a section on existing conditions, a section on vegetation management methods regarding installation, establishments, and maintenance, a section on monitoring, a project schedule, reporting, which would be explaining the format of the information to be submitted for approval under regulatory compliance criteria. And then attachments, as suggested, like a scaled site plan, photographs, supporting site documentation, and regulatory compliance documentation. So those were the final things that this group had submitted to the town board for review as the first draft for an addendum. And that's where that is sitting. That was basically, that information was sent to the town board for their analysis, and the ball is in their court as far as that goes. The group has not met again yet.
And
Or
and
just
just, so
waiting
you know,
for that
so
to come.
wording that was suggested by that group has been added to the solar law. Much of what was provided are really kind of tools that are going to be outside of the law, the scorecard, and, you know, it's going to be really the planning board and the architectural review board and conservation board that's going to say, we need this, we need this, we need this.
It'll
So
be codified in the ordinance,
there will be wording that suggests
similar to. what-
some, right. I mean, a lot of what was provided and was, you provided a ton of information, but to actually incorporate that into a law,
Sure.
much of that was actually already covered, the regulatory and the wetlands and the, you know, all the regulatory checkoffs, and we had already incorporated much of it. It's more just the pollinator scorecard and some other tools that will be used to support how the different boards will request information from the developers, basically. I'm hoping that's consistent with what you were thinking, Liz.
Yeah, I mean, what came out of the subcommittee meetings was that, and we were adhering to that. Basically just submitted a cache of information that could be included as
Right.
kind of brainstorming. And because we needed to hurry up and submit a first draft, and just letting you scale it down from there based on both attorney recommendations and what the town is looking for.
Well, thanks, that sounds like a ton of work.
Yeah.
It was.
And at the end of your busy school year, so thank you so much.
Yes. Alice is joining.
Hi. So repeat to me now, at this point, some of it might be written into the law, but much of it is already part of it.
So I can kind of go through the law. If you guys wanted to just view what's up there, because I don't think we have a big agenda today, do we? So I mean, if we have a few minutes, I could just kind of show you what we have in the law, not just what Liz did, but the whole works, just to kind of, but I'm going to do it on a very high level. I don't want to get into a lot of depth on it.
We're talking about the silver revised zoning law?
Yes.
So before the 18th or 19th, a final draft will be available for people to see.
Oh, yes.
on the-
Yeah, it's got to be available and
Okay.
publicly out on the net 10 days before the public hearing.
Oh, 10 days
A
before.
minimum of 10 days before. I mean, right now, you're gonna,
Wow.
this will actually show up in our, so anyone that wants to read this, I'm gonna go slow enough that if you want to go back to this meeting, you can actually watch this meeting and read every word that's in the law. So, because
Okay.
this is top to bottom. This is the draft law, but keep in mind, this is not yet reviewed by any legal entity yet. So this is still strictly a draft, but you'll be able to see.
Does any of this include the original law, or is this? a
This-
completely different-
It's the base, or the skeleton is the original. All the red lines you're gonna see in a minute. Green means it's the original, although I didn't adhere to that perfectly. That's just the word solar.
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
sure why that's showing up as yellow, but anyways, you'll see the red lines. So I'll kind of, on a very high level, go through this briefly here today. So nothing really, these are all just the definitions, no big changes here. So we did change the definition of prime agricultural soils. Soil that has the best combination of physical and chemical characteristic for producing crops. So that was agricultural soil. And then we added a definition for topsoil, which is the top layer of soil, because we don't want any soil removed from the site. So we've added not just prime, but topsoil.
Right, okay.
Correct. Yep, so that would have given them the ability to possibly remove soil, but we do not want anything removed from the site. So nothing changed here until you see red. Okay, so this red section, so originally it said when storage batteries are, this is about storage batteries. Originally, we were going to allow storage batteries on the solar sites. We've decided based on safety and other concerns, we need a separate law for this, for battery storage, because there's a lot of safety, firefighting, first responder, a lot of other concerns related to that. So due to safety concerns and other unique requirements associated with major solar collection, solar farm battery storage will be restricted from use at such facilities. So for right now, we're restricting the use with the intent to create a separate law that will then permit, whether it's at the solar site or as a separate facilities, storage for major solar collectors.
Solar collection, is that the amount of water? What is-
And the reason why major, so yeah, it's based on, yeah, it's not a residential. So residentials commonly have batteries, so we can't restrict that, but we can for the major, and that's where the safety issues are.
Mike, do any of our current parks have batteries? I would think not,
No-
right?
None of them do currently, correct. So no changes here. So we removed the total coverage on a lot. We originally said 80%, which we removed that because it suggests that they have the right to get to 80%. And there's reasons why maybe 80% isn't possible. There could be wetlands, there could be many different things that, so we're kind of not defining what that is. And the law actually provides some restrictions based on that. And you'll see them as we go through this. So the minimum setback. So this is one of the things we talked a lot about. If you remember, the developers were at 0. We were up to 700 feet in certain areas. So the minimum side setback is 50 feet. The minimum rear yard setback is 50 feet. The minimum setback of 100 feet originally, so it was between 200 and 1 and 0. So we're saying 100 feet from all adjacent DEC wetlands, creeks, and streams. That's consistent with the NYSERDA law. Ours had 25 feet originally, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
So what is it now?
So 100, yep,
100,
right.
I thought they could actually build in on a wetland.
They can, right, not by the new law. What we're proposing, which hasn't been reviewed yet, we're saying no. We're saying 100 feet away from. The minimum setback, so yeah, the reason why they could is theoretically they're just screwing in bolts to the
Yeah,
ground.
yeah.
So they're saying they're not really disrupting the wetlands and that's DEC wetlands we're talking about. Minimum setback of 500 feet from inhabited residence, 350 feet from any structure, or sorry, 300 feet from any structure, minimum setback of 400 feet from any public road, minimum setback of 500 feet from all property lines. And that's significantly greater than what we had in the prior law, many-fold higher. And then siting restrictions. So solar panels are restricted from being placed in DC wetlands. This is all brand new. Mature hardwoods with the 1-year look back. The development of operation of a solar energy system shall not have significant adverse impact on fish, wildlife, or plant species or other significant habitats. Siting of solar installations should conform to the Grand Island Comprehensive Plan.
So we're gonna have to, somebody's gonna have to be able to.
Mike, do you have a definition for mature hardwoods?
I think we do up above.
Okay,
Good question, though. Let me look. So that's in the law as well, that any board will have access to the property, need to be permitted access to the property for inspection. So we'll see that soon.
Is there a minimum size for the lot, the entire lot?
I think 100 acres, but I have to go back and look. I don't think I saw major hardwoods. So I will note that we missed that.
We need to have that for sure.
Good question, Jerry. Okay. So going back down here. So screening, originally, so one of the things we eliminated a landscape buffer of trees, shrubs, or bushes. This is really our screening. That's what it said. Trees, shrubs, or bushes shall be provided around all equipment and solar collectors to provide. So that's all been eliminated. And now we got better defined what the requirements are. The screening plan must be submitted for review by the Architectural Review Board so they can provide recommendations, a berm, landscape screen, et cetera. So you can kind of see we've added a lot more definition on what the requirements are. So there needs to be a actual visual assessment. There needs to be, they're going to actually provide us with a lot of information so that we can look at it three-dimensionally and understand what is a screening plan, and from different view sites, what it's going to look like, basically. So this screening plan shall specify the location, elevation, height, plant species. So we've added a lot of definition on what the screening plan is. And this was one of the areas that we were very deficient on previously.
Mike, wasn't there going to be some notes in here relative to follow-up inspections, relative
There
to?
will, yeah, you'll see it. We'll get to that section under maintenance and what have you. But yes, there is an annual inspection required, and we'll hit that in a minute. The project must be referred to the Conservation Advisory Board, CAB, and other advisory boards. This was your question, Suzanne. When requested by the town board, should be given access to the project site by the developer or landowner to evaluate project impact on environmental, vegetation, wildlife, soil, water, or drainage. So it's not just the conservation board, but if the architectural review board or the planning board want to go and visually look at and understand what we're doing, they should be provided access by the developer as per our law. Documentation of a comprehensive screening and vegetation plan, which shall at a minimum include screening of a permanent nature that will appropriately screen sightlines of the proposed solar energy system so as to significantly diminish sightlines from all adjacent property. Major solar farm shall develop, implement, and maintain native vegetation to the extent practicable pursuant to a vegetation management plan. This might be from you, Liz, I think. By providing native perennial vegetation and foraging habitat beneficial to game, birds, etc. These plantings shall cover the ground area throughout the solar panel fenced-in area. Screening and vegetation plans to be drafted and endorsed by a licensed landscape architect. I think that's you again, Liz, if I remember, to include images of screening from each compass directional and or additional views shown at time expected intervals at install at the 2-year anniversary. So this is their plan that they're going to give us. We'll show it at time 0, at 2 years, and at 5 years. So what would we expect to see, basically? So that's part of the plan that they must submit. So no change in that section, just a little bit more. So a tree inventory should be performed by accepted third-party contractor. Town provided qualifications prior to inventory. All trees 6 inches at breast height on property. Removal of any topsoil, so that's where that definition came from, the subject parcel is prohibited.
Change from 6 inches DBH, you have at breast height, not whether it's a diameter or a radius or circumference even. It should be DBH.
DABH, though?
DBH, diameter breast height.
Oh, I got it. What's A stand for?
I have no idea.
Oh, I thought at breast height. Okay. Diameter breast height. Got it. Very good. See, you guys are good at, better at reviewing than I am, so.
Mike,
Yes.
is there a minimum topsoil thickness?
We're saying they can't remove anything from the site. No, there's not.
That was just a comment, says, you know, how much topsoil you need to sustain the growth.
Yeah, I don't know if we can get that
Yeah,
detailed.
and by this time, right?
I mean, they're gonna be required to grow stuff, so hopefully they do the right thing. So a
Will
piece of
there-
equipment-
I'm sorry, will there be any language about that proposal, the suggestion last time that removal of particular trees would impose a fee on the developer? Or would that be for like a separate?
Let's see if that's in here. I'm going off of memory here. There might be something a little lower. So hold that thought and let's make sure we revisit it. So,
Lockport decided to do that.
so a piece of equipment, so anyways, let's see, what section are we in here? So these are some of the requirements. So solar panel design ban. So there's a certain type of solar panel that has higher reachability, both during construction, during use, if there's like a hailstorm or some other damage that occurs, as well as during disposal. And we do not want those types of solar panels to be employed on Grand Island, basically. So that's one of the bans. This was something that may or may not survive is that currently the panels are not the panels. Currently there's a province in China that uses slave labor. It's well known. In fact, they just, Biden just passed something, an executive order regarding not allowing certain materials coming out of that province. But we don't want those type of panels on Grand Island because it is slave labor. It's, there is genocide occurring in that province and everything else. So we do not want any association with that. Right. I mean, basically, if that's not, that goes against all appropriate ethical standards to be supporting that type of activity.
Mike, would it be wiser instead of actually listing a province to start listing for the purpose of restricting slave labor? I think you've got that underneath, but a lot of the dealings I've had with China, once something goes bad in a certain province, they just move it.
Well, right now it's known and very well publicized. And in fact, the Biden administration's restricting sales out of that province because of what's happening in there. That's where the concentration camps are. There's over 200 or over 2 million people in concentration, works slave labor, organ harvesting, you name it. Really bad things are happening there.
But you can't have cadmium telluride
There's only-
panels anyways, right?
There's only so much we can do, and this one, I think we can define everything else. So what we're gonna do is actually require the developer to say where they're sourcing their panels from. So that'll be part of the submission documentation, so we confirm that it's not coming from that province. On-site storage restrictions, so we do not want any storage of out-of-use panels, mainly because if they're damaged, if there's something defective, it could potentially be leaching, and we do not want groundwater contamination. Ham operators have been known to be affected by the panels, and if you properly ground them to prevent certain emissions, Class B emissions, that won't mess up ham radio operators. And it just so happens there's a couple of ham radio operators right on Whitehaven Road in close proximity. So they were very concerned about that. Special use permit requirements, written and signed confirmation of compliance with solar panel restrictions and design requirements as detailed in this law must be signed and submitted as part of permit submission. Example, no panels produced in whatever province, and then thin film cadmium telluride panels. So they need to sign off that, no, we're not using these types of panels. So that'll be part of the documentation package that they have to submit. Next one is just for first responders. Right now, there were commitments made for the prior solar farms to do training and et cetera for first responders. That really never happened. Now we're going to require an actual plan that's going to be handed to us and that's going to be audited or as part of the inspection and special use permit renewal. We're going to confirm that the first responder requirements and commitments are being followed through on.
By the developer.
Right. And training by the developer. So emergency response plan as part of special use permit, must submit an emergency response plan for any potential hazard situation, firefighter lightning strikes, panel damage, etc. Plan must include requirements for documented training of fire department, a list of possible events, etc. Here's where you had a question, I think, Jerry. So inspection is part of special use permit approval or renewal. An inspection shall be requested upon reasonable notice. The town of Grand Island code enforcement or designee may enter a lot on which a solar energy system has been approved for the purpose of compliance with any requirements or conditions, et cetera, within 48 hours. So just some of the things they're going to confirm. They're going to confirm the pollinator program is in compliance, inspect for out of service panels, inspect for brush fire risk, because we don't want to brush fire into the panels because then toxins get released. Inspection for fencing for security, required documented inspection of output or to be included with special use. So if it's not generating power and if it's not generating power for a certain period of time, they need to start decommissioning the. So failure to.
Was anything else done with the holes in the fencing?
Yeah, you'll see that in a minute. So that is coming up. So landscaping and screening. So this is some of that. Obviously, this needs to get cleaned up, and that's one of the things the lawyers are going to do. They are professional at writing laws like this, so they're going to help us with that. So prior to building approval, a clearing, grading, stormwater, and erosion control plan should be submitted to the town for approval. The plan must minimize the potential adverse impacts. So here's the fencing. So leave 6-inch gaps at bottom of fencing to permit wildlife passage, 6 by 12 every 50 feet. A alternate option would be a fence designed such that it may permit passage of smaller animals. So they need to submit something that meets some kind of a pass-through requirement. Fencing will not employ barbed wire. Pesticides and herbicides, we all agreed, use of any form of pesticides are prohibited for any purpose, so no pesticides. We did say herbicides should be acceptable, and part of that is to keep invasive species out and to maintain the pollinator program.
But they should be short acting and not something that stays in the forever and ever.
Yeah. Okay, so this is just change of ownership. The owner of a large-scale solar energy system shall provide the town with a decommissioning estimate prepared by a competent and experienced third party, setting forth the costs associated with decommissioning the solar facility. The owner or operator of the solar energy system changes, so change of ownership so that the bond changes hands so that we don't lose that. Failure to receive approval for the special use permit, so this is new, or failure to receive renewal within 6 months after its expiration shall result in a request to discontinue operations and to initiate decommissioning. So that's something that wasn't in the law and needs to be, because what if they're not in compliance? What if they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing and we're not renewing their special use permit? We need the ability to say, hey, after a certain time period, we need to decommission. And that is the law.
I'm curious to see what it is.
Mike, what I didn't see was something to the effect, and Liz mentioned it earlier, was you talked about a tree inventory, but there was nothing in place to say, well, yeah, some special trees are going to be taken down. What are the repercussions of that?
Right. So I will note that. So a tree replacement plan or something.
I think what the developers were trying to push for was the fact that they're building, they're putting pine trees in should be adequate, an adequate replacement, but I don't think that's always going to be the case.
I actually think there's something in here. I may have brushed over it, or it may have been pre-existing. So let me see what I can find here.
Mitigation if they have to remove trees.
Yeah, I do think it's in here somewhere. Just have to find it. Give me 1 second here. Gotta find my search.
Would you want replacement or do you want to have them pay something? Mitigation, I always think of as you're replacing with something else.
Where is my search window here? Fine, there it is.
In a way it is, yeah.
That could be a choice for the developer. Do you want to the other?
Yeah, when we have a project where we want them to buy trees, or should we just want the money so we can buy trees?
It was up at the beginning where it mentioned something about the mature trees.
Okay, so the screening, so. Removal of trees and other existing shall be limited to the extent necessary. Removal of
A tree
existing.
inventory should be performed by an accepted third-party contractor. There it is.
Yeah, but that's not saying replace.
No, but wasn't Jerry's question about the tree inventory? Because we're not gonna allow it if there are certain species of trees present, right?
You need more than just an inventory. You can say we have these big beautiful trees here, okay, we're cutting them down.
Yeah, but wasn't there a paragraph beforehand that mentioned some specific species and said that if they were present? I don't know. Yeah, it said, it mentioned swamp oak and.
Yeah, can you go find?
Okay,
that?
hold it just a
Yeah,
minute.
Yeah.
Let me find where this one is. Okay, so I think I just lost it there. Okay, here it is. So where is this one? Okay, so removal of trees and other existing shall be limited to the extent removal of existing a tree inventory. Hold on 1 second here.
How many trees were on that list?
So a mitigation program for tree loss or other special habitat grassland should be considered. I don't know why I can't figure out where that's, it says it here somewhere, I just gotta find it in this.
It looks like it might be a comment, like a sidebar comment posted alongside the document.
You're right, yep. So yeah, we're looking for the legal team to give us the wording for that.
Regarding fencing, are the gaps being required regardless of zoning? The animal passage gaps, are they being?
Yeah,
required
so,
regardless
so
of zoning?
safety is gonna be required to be part of the consideration, so the gaps are gonna be small enough that it's not gonna cause a safety issue, if that's what you're saying.
Well, I guess I'm asking because I would think that in an industrial area, the passage of the animals might not be the priority as opposed to like if it's in agricultural land or, yeah. You know, a plot like somewhere in Whitehaven is different than some, you know, like a parcel that's being used for, I mean, it's like a construction yard or something like that, where I'm just curious if the standard is applying to both scenarios.
Yeah, I think
What do you see? on
it's
the
never
list?
gonna be that detailed, I think that's gonna, a lot of that's gonna fall back on the architectural review board, the planning board, the conservation board, and the town board as part of the special use permit. I mean, every case is gonna be unique.
But it doesn't seem like that from the wording of this law. It looks like it's going to be straight across the board required no matter what.
And sorry, could you repeat it again? What's your concern, Liz? What is it that's gonna be required?
The 6-inch gaps along the bottom of the fencing for the
Good point.
animal corridors, the animal passages, like
Right.
it looks, the wording, it passed by kind of quickly. So I'm not quite sure, but it looks like it's required regardless of where the the solar farm is located, regardless of.
These are all gonna be 30, 40 acres. I think it would, yeah. So I do think it's all gonna be in kind of a wildlife area, so, I, my guess is, as part of the special use, I mean, it is a special use permit. There's exceptions to every rule, so.
But does,
It's a good point, and I would bet that the legal review will probably finesse the wording on that some.
okay,
Could you apply for an exemption?
I'm not sure how we will manage that.
okay. And the other thing, can we look at the herbicide section again really quickly, please?
So it says the use of herbicides must be limited and only used for the purpose of maintaining the native pollinators and other plant vegetation on the site.
Okay.
Something like DEC approved herbicides? Is there?
They would all have to be
They would all
approved,
have to be
yeah.
Yeah, I think New York State has the pesticide, herbicide applicators requirements.
Yeah, I don't think getting into that level of detail is gonna, I think that's already a defined program.
Does that answer your concern, Liz? Do you have an additional concern, Liz?
Liz, are you on mute?
I can't hear, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
Do you have an additional concern about that? Section?
Yeah, I do. Well, I do because I'm thinking, I don't think it would require a lot of alteration of this wording to make it communicate that it's subject to the like site plan approval process, or subject to, you know, the DEC laws or whatever. I just feel like it must be limited and used only for, it's kind of vague, but at the same time specific, and I'm uncomfortable with it, but I haven't had enough time to think it through either.
Yeah, I think the tough one on there is no one in town government's probably gonna be an expert on that area.
Mhm.
And I would assume that if they're gonna be using herbicides, that they would be required to use approved products. I don't think we're gonna be able to get into that level of detail through code enforcement or anything else.
Yeah, I guess I might consider that it would be an unwritten rule that approved products would be used. I'm just saying, I think I'm thinking more of the method.
Right, exactly.
Well, maybe they
I-
could be included in the site plan that they have to submit if they're planning on using herbicides, right?
If someone,
I think that pesticide, herbicide, New York State applicators, permit has requirements, on how much they can apply, what they're gonna apply, and how to apply it.
it's true, but from the subcommittee meetings that we've had, the overall takeaway has been there's a very strong desire to be way more restrictive than what's allowed. So for example, with herbicides, injection, like spot treating with herbicides, and not any kind of, spraying or dusting, that kind of thing.
Right, exactly. I think that the least amount of, also the short acting herbicides would be definitely preferable, and spot treating, because you don't want to just randomly spray everywhere.
maybe a sentence to say something to the effect that, any planned use of any application plan must be submitted for approval or something like that, I don't know.
Thing is, I don't know that we're qualified to do that.
Yeah, that's true.
I think I don't know if we can add much more to that and make it really it'd be more symbolism over substance. And I don't really want to do that. I don't want to create a situation where code enforcement is being asked to do something they're just not qualified to ever have any idea on how to do it.
You almost need a herbicide expert.
But I think that would come along with the training that, for example, the Pollinator Associates is suggesting, or this is just an example, but the training that they would do includes the use of like the recommended use of herbicides and best practices. And so the idea was that anyone trained by them or a like kind of training would be knowledgeable about that and would use that information in their inspections.
I'll have the Zofflin group look at that and
Okay.
inform us if because that's what they do is they write these types of laws. Maybe they have-
language from other
Right. Okay. So that was just a quick overview. Basically, you saw you saw every page if you wanted to look through it on your
But we're
spare
also
time.
looking to see if there was a maximum and a minimum size put on the park.
Could you say that again? Sorry.
At one point during the discussions, we were talking about setting a maximum and a minimum size of the solar park.
Yeah, did we end up doing that? Let me look at acres. Let me just a minute. So we got this. So we have minimum lot size required is 5 acres in the M1 and M2 district, 5 acres, 0.2 or 25 acres in R1. Solar energy is larger than 10 acres shall include a visual impact assessment of. Yeah, we didn't set a maximum, but there's, I think it's like 100 acres, but there's not 100 acres lot on the island that would even fall under that.
The only reason I was mentioning that was anything over 25 acres, we felt that there would be a need to really stress that there may be a requirement for corridors for larger animals.
And it is a requirement. So regardless, any of the major solar farms will have, right now we're just saying across the board, they are going to require the corridors. Yep. Well, the corridors are the gaps, right?
No, not the 6-inch gaps. They would be corridors for large animals.
Like deer.
So if you had a 100-acre farm, you would basically maybe 50 acres of it would be on one side of a 20 or 30-foot corridor, and the other 50 acres would be on the other side, passage for animals like deer and anything that couldn't get under the 6 inches. That was the purpose.
Got it. I will ask if we have an example of that from the Zofflin group too. So
Yeah,
for the
we kept hearing the comment that, well, we'll never have a 100-acre site. Well, if that's the case, we should remove the 100 acres. We shouldn't have that in the law. We should have a 50 acres or something that we think that a large corridor would not be required.
Okay.
Yeah, for people who have smaller spaces, it basically means they can't do anything.
What do you mean?
Well, I was talking to Tom Thompson and he was saying that he doesn't have as much space as was required and it was an issue for him.
Any other questions? So I will follow up on that, Jerry.
Thank you, and nice job, Mike.
Yep.
Looks
Yeah,
like.
nice job, Mike. You did a
Oh.
nice job.
A lot of people contributed to this. I was just the note taker,
Very
so.
complete.
It's very thorough.
Yeah.
Well, it's a very different law than what we had. Our law was minimalist in terms of community.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
Okay. So hopefully,
And to Jerry and Liz
Yeah,
too,
Jerry,
thank you for
thank
all
you.
that.
Great job.
you've done.
yep, very good job.
For all the meetings.
So we will keep you up to date on our progress. Hopefully they are able to review it quickly and help us with the wording so that we can make it defensible, and you'll see you see what it is right now. We'll see what the output is after that. So, but my feeling is that most of what you saw there will be retained. The wording might be smoothed out a little bit. That's all. And obviously we need to add a definition for hardwoods.
You guys seemed like you were very fair on the setbacks too, so that was good.
Yep.
Fair to the community.
Okay, so we're done with the solar law. We can move on to projects, which is another amorphous term.
I like that word amorphous. I should use
It's
it
an
more
SAT
often.
word that we need to
Yeah,
use once
I
in a
need
while.
to use it more often.
So, I assume under those projects would be the tree inventory grant.
Yes.
Yeah, Sue and I were part of the group that interviewed 2 arborists, and we have now officially hired the Davy Resource Group to do our inventory. We were very impressed with their presentation. Those of you who might remember Lori Brockleback.
Oh, yeah.
She was the one who gave the presentation, and she'll be in charge. Yeah, so we're happy about that.
It didn't actually create a map then, like GPS coordinates? or-
It's unbelievable, the database that they
Yeah,
work with.
yeah.
And it will be completed at some point in September.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, they plan to start at the beginning of August. And they have a team of all these qualified young, most of them look pretty young to me. Very qualified people, to do this. Oh, and one really nice thing I thought is, she was incredibly thorough, talk about thorough. They could give us weekly updates on what streets they've done and what streets they're gonna be going to, and
But every tree on public property in Grand Island time will be spent on it. It will be included in this database. It will have many categories of data. Its circumference, its breast height, what does its canopy look like? What is the soil condition? Does it have any pests? Should it be removed? Should it be trimmed?
Yeah, all this.
And then they even have the additional
For
file,
every tree though?
every tree. And if a person
Well, then we
calls,
would know
if a
that.
person
If they
calls the
suddenly
town,
clear cut, we would know what they
Yeah,
clear cut.
yeah.
if a person calls the town about their particular tree, a voice file can be attached to the database.
So
It's
cool.
amazing.
That's awesome.
And then this will be a tool that the
Nice.
town can use moving forward. So
Oh.
the next year, the town will look at it to see, well, which trees do we need to, and then they can maintain the data. So we trimmed this tree, we took this tree down, somebody called about that tree. And then they will also create a management plan for us moving forward. So where should we add trees? What types of trees should we add? All sorts of things. It's remarkable.
Yes, it
Great.
is.
And we'll have a number of public presentations to explain it all. Because people are gonna wanna
Interesting.
know why people are tromping around the island.
Right.
With their iPads.
And one thing we talked about, I checked on, the National Night Out is early August. I told Jen Bainey that we might like to, our tree committee CAB would like to have a table or a tent
Oh, great.
there to let people know about it and, answer questions.
Great.
So we're on the schedule for that. Yeah, we're very excited to begin now.
Great job putting that together with Dick and everybody else, and
Well, Diane's
Yeah.
perseverance, resubmitting the grant every
Great
time it
job.
came up.
Yeah, no, and we have a
especially the fact that it's all paid for right through the grant? Is there,
Yes.
there is no match, I don't think either, right?
No,
Yeah.
no match.
Yep, good.
And there might be extra money left over that we can.
And once you've completed this, then it's a stepping stone to other funding opportunities. addressing
For
trees in the
plant,
community.
especially for planting.
Yep, great.
No,
Does anybody know if that has been submitted into the Climate Smart Community Program?
Jennifer Bainey is working on that. So we are actually putting in for an energy smart community, whatever, with
Designation.
designation.
Yeah, but
If
I'm
we
on
get that
that.
designation, then grants we're more open to getting other grants for energy savings and what have you. And we have a lot of things going on throughout the town government. The LED lights, I mean, that's a 60% reduction in street lighting, electric use, as well as a huge cost savings to the residents.
Maybe
Like,
solar on.
The reason I'm asking is that we're having a meeting probably early July. There's 3 of us on that task force.
Oh, good.
On CAB, do you want us to put that into the program?
Oh, yeah, that couldn't hurt, sure. And if you need particulars about it, let us know. In order to put the information that we're doing the tree inventory into their application for designation as a,
Oh, climate change.
yeah.
Who, Jerry, who's on that? From our board?
Jen Bainey heads it up. I'm on it. I think Paul and Ed.
Okay.
In case you didn't know,
Okay, I guess I am.
you've volunteered.
Let me know.
You've been
when we're
volunteered, I should
meeting.
say.
So it sounds like the designation, they're pretty close to getting, what do I want to say? They're pretty close to doing everything they needed to apply for the designation. Does that sound correct, Jerry? Oh, you're muted.
Jerry, we see you talking, but we can't hear you. You must have hit mute. Oh, you are muted.
You're unmute, Jerry. Your mouth is moving.
Okay, who can read lips?
Not me.
Okay,
There you go. Now we can hear you.
There we go.
I guess my space button is kind of working here. What was the question on it?
Okay, I guess I'm just trying to summarize here for the minutes. It sounds like the group that's been meeting is very close to completing everything for the application to be designated as a climate smart community. Is that correct?
That is correct, but it is an ongoing thing and there are higher level of awards to reach for.
Okay.
So I think Jen mentioned we'll be going throughout the year on this program.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So we may be having discussions down the road on, well, not only adding this, I think Paul's working with them on adding the trail map information. We're talking about conservation easement inventory or the EED, and that's where, well, maybe Ed can help us out on that, understanding if there is a map of all the EED sites and then the only other thing that we have on our list right now is possibly submitting the open space inventory. But I guess we can't do that until it's the fact of it going public is resolved.
I'm not sure. Yeah, that is a question that was raised at the joint meeting too. What,
Oh, we do have the
What
open
to-
space inventory now. And in
We do.
fact, I also have, Jeff wasn't here today, so I do have I have a backup thumb drive. I'll give to Jeff, but they have it in the engineering. Right.
Okay, so it is there.
Yep.
That's good to know.
Good thing someone asked about it because it blocked We had to
Find it.
bring it back, rope it back in. So now engineering has that map and everything, so.
But Mike, does that resolve the discussion of, I guess what Jen told me, it cannot be used until released to the public. So that's still a question mark, right? Whether or not that would be released.
I mean, it's really just an inventory. Yeah, I don't know. Let me talk to, see what I heard what was her name? The consultant that helped us create it. She was the one that
Oh,
expressed
yeah.
that concern,
Is it
but
Rachel? Rachel.
I mean, it's really just, it just says what we have on the island. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it shouldn't be a concern. I mean, we know what the green spaces are.
It doesn't strike me as something that we need to publicly unveil.
Or not, there would be no reason not to also. To
I thought they're
me.
worried about property values. If you have a prime real estate, all of a sudden it's on top of the list because you sell it for more now.
Yeah,
Or the
but
opposite.
you just
Yeah.
look at it and you're gonna know what type of
I can't
real estate
develop
it
it
is.
now, right?
Yeah. Well, South Point's going through.
Yeah.
That's number one.
Yeah, that was number one.
It was.
Did it go through?
It's going through.
Oh. Should I be,
Is that a decision for the town board to make, what to do with it?
I would say, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, anyone could foil it and it'll be
Right,
public
if people are
tomorrow.
concerned, put
It's
it
not-
someplace on the website.
It really should be public to me. So, but let me have a conversation with the board and just see what they
Yeah.
say.
Sure. And then I think, so this is a good segue to the open space plan, which I think, did Jeff mention that somebody's meeting with Clarence to talk about?
Oh, they're coming,
Or Clarence is
yeah,
coming to
Jim-
our next meeting?
Oh,
Jim
good.
arranged for, I can't remember the
Jim,
name.
you want to tell
Jim.
us about the meeting with Clarence?
Yeah, it's just next month, July, we'll have a rep from the town of Clarence explain this print plan and also how they protected green spaces, etc. And then, the person will be open to any questions that we have. So that'll be in July. And it's going to be on, and the invitation is on Zoom for the town of Clarence. So Mike, I'll give you the person's
Okay,
email and then you can invite them.
sounds good.
Well, thanks for setting that up, Jim.
Yep.
So we're not, we haven't done any more in terms of moving forward because we want to get a little more.
Right.
And on, in early July, I'll be reporting to the Long Range Planning Committee that we're looking into this.
So Paul is not here tonight, but Diane and I walked with him to do another trail to add to the map of trails on the island. We walked the connector trail that starts on West River, and we walked it all the way through across the creek into Galagly. And what we discovered is that the town has really created this whole network of trails. It's not just the connector trail that goes straight to Galagly. There are some lovely sort of side trails. And I would say you could probably, if you started on West River, took all the trails to Galagly and came back, you could probably get at least 4 miles of a good walk in. And
You
it's,
can go
and it's
right to
absolutely
Nike
lovely.
base too, I think, right?
Pardon me?
You can, there's another trail I think that they have that goes right to the Nike base
Yes.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can take it. I walk that a lot with my grandkids. We go to the playground at Nike, but you can also continue on. And that's where some of the side trails start. And it ends up at the town property, and you cross the creek and you're still on town property. And then eventually you follow that trail and you end up on Galagly. So if you take all of those trails, you can get a good
And there will be a
good
bridge over the
4
creek
mile
soon
walk
too.
in. Yeah, there's a plan to put the bridge in
Yep.
in the fall. So it's a really lovely addition to walking trails on the island, and I really recommend that you all check it out.
And now Paul has submitted it to the town, so it should be included on the map.
Right.
The one concern we had was it's kind of easy to get lost. In amongst all these trails, they're not all marked. There's a few that are marked with like a color, but there needs to be a lot more
Signage, yeah.
signage back in there. And what?
Huh?
Whoa, what's that about?
Someone's phone,
Did I do something?
And we
Jim's
need,
phone, I think.
and we need to make sure that none of it is on private land too.
Which I assume
But it could be,
that,
we don't know
I like
about
to
it.
assume that the town, when they cleared it, knew what
Hopefully.
land they were on.
Yeah.
You know what happens,
Yeah,
and
but
you
it-
assume.
It
They
wasn't
were-
all cleared by the town. Some of those roads we were on,
I think
I
everyone
thought-
that we were on was the town because it had those markers on it. The ones that we didn't go down. Well, anyways, there needs to be some clarification
Right.
regarding signage
So, yeah,
and where
The
you
one's going
are.
down the wrong trail, yeah.
well, and the other concern is if you're gonna put it on a map that's gonna go public, you don't want somebody to say, oh, that's on my property.
Yeah.
Right.
So just need to be aware of that.
Well, he submitted it to the town, so the town can
Well,
determine whether or not.
Kevin wouldn't put a trail on private. So he wouldn't list it, so that's why you'd want to work through Kevin on that,
Yeah, and that's who he submitted it to.
right?
Any other projects?
No, we talked
No.
about. I can't think of any.
Okay.
In terms of the comp plan, I'm just going to present to them in July what we've already talked about in our last couple of meetings, as to how we're doing in terms of completing or working on projects that are in the comp plan, the tasks that are listed. So I think,
Like a tree ordinance, oh, sorry.
yeah.
That should take another 25 years.
So
It says
I,
short term. I saw that
Yeah,
just the
right.
other day. I was looking at the comp plan, short term.
Short term, yeah.
yeah.
It does.
Short
I
is
know, I
like
know.
a very,
So I'm gonna suggest a
Effective
few changes, like that should be long-term maybe.
very long-term.
We could use it to press it, so who knows?
Yeah.
I'm still not
Anyway,
opposed to trying again.
Anyway, I will be presenting to them, and if they have any feedback for us, I'll bring it back.
Awesome.
So if there are no other projects, then next on the agenda is the town board report.
So the big one is we just approved the town as the lead agency for seeker for the Long Road warehouse. The next step is the developer has to provide a scope of work that they're going to suggest for a supplemental EIS, because we did do a positive declaration, so they need to do a supplemental EIS on that. So they're going to provide a scope of work that they're going to suggest that they think is going to be required. The town is going to then look at that and then add to it or whatever. I would assume that they're going to add to it. That's then going to go to a public hearing. We're going to get public feedback for what the good, the bad, and whatever that from what the public sees from the scope of work that's being suggested. Town board will take that feedback, hopefully make some modifications, and then they'll have the scope of work that they need to do to meet the seeker requirements for their project.
And what's the rationale behind the town board having it be supplemental? Why was the vote?
There are things that they've done where, the work has been completed in certain areas. So it would be supplemental, no matter whether you call it supplemental or a full EIS or whatever, they're going to use some of the previous work that's been done that isn't considered expired. So no matter what, it's going to be whatever the scope of work is that we feel is going to be required in order to even consider approving that project. And there are still issues. One of it is the current footprint exceeds the zoned area that they can operate in, goes into a residential area
Right.
for retention ponds, which requires a variance approval, which to me, my personal belief is that it should be contained within the zoned area. you know, when you look at the comprehensive plan, the long-range plan for the town, it describes clustered buildings with park-like setting and green space. And this is one huge mammoth building, no green space, you know, and, you know, if it was more within the footprint, it might be more within the park-like setting, more like the industrial park, or industrial drive, or some of the other facilities we have on the island. More
So what is
consistent
the
with that.
timeline moving forward then?
They're driving it, so they could take a month, they could take 6 months, so until
They will be submitting their.
they're driving the timeline right now,
and
and
then
they
the
haven't
town
given us,
responds to that.
right, so then they give it to us, we'll probably take a month or two to look at whatever their scope of work is that they're proposing, and then we're gonna add to that and give feedback,
In the form of a
and
public hearing.
then there will be a public hearing once we've got our, you know, added to whatever we think is gonna be required.
So, the developer has to submit a plan,
A scope of work
the
that,
scope of work, that's it.
right,
Okay.
you know, like a noise study, baseline pollution study, I mean, if I were to think of certain things, a
Um,
wildlife, endangered species assessment,
Requirements under the seeker.
right.
Yeah.
the impact drainage wise for just the tremendous thousands and thousands of yards of fill that they have to do just to try and do this facility. You know, they're saying there's not a height variance. We say there is, because what they're doing is they're filling it up,
Yeah.
you know, 9 or 12 feet and then building on top of that. So they are clearly, you know, you got to start from where you started from, not from where you built it up from.
Well, I'm glad they're required to do all of this.
That's good. Is there any other town board?
So nothing other that's major currently. Haven't heard any new news on South Point. Already covered solar. Those are the big things that are going on right now.
So repeat the latest on South Point, just for my knowledge.
So the South Point, we did the approval. I think it was January. And now they have to, you know, submit their plan and it
Okay.
goes through the next steps.
The
But the
approval
approval
was
was the seeker approval.
Okay.
And the preliminary plat or whatever they call it.
Mhm.
So now they need to
Okay.
create a real plan and start going through the approval process.
I've seen some like activity when I drive down Baseline. You know, people surveying it and
Right.
whatever it is that they're doing. So I assume that's,
See, I haven't seen that, so that's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay,
I drive down Baseline a lot.
right.
I don't drive anywhere.
Anything else on the town?
Nothing major. There's tremendous amount of construction everywhere. There's, you know, a lot of little projects.
What about,
Dollar General over on Love Road. There's
Oh, yeah.
something else there.
What are those bays on the boulevard?
Yeah, inquiring minds want to know.
It's like a
Bays?
big trucking
Yeah, there's like a
operation.
building, it's blue, it's got all these, looks like all these bays. It was built by
It's not-
Amish
It's a
people and there's
warehouse.
no
And you're not
identification
talking
of what
about
it
the
is.
car wash,
Across
obviously.
from-
No, not the
across from
car wash.
Fantasy Island.
Could it be a storage?
Across from Fantasy Island, it's big, huge trucking bays.
the
You know,
warehouse, yeah,
yeah, really big.
It's huge.
but I don't know who.
There's no
I
identification,
probably know
right?
what it is, but I can't place it right now, so sorry.
It's like a, right, like,
Yeah, it's on the
They
east side of,
they put the
Grand
pond in
Boulevard.
the front.
Hmm.
And the
Big.
warehouse, big building
Right.
like that. So,
any announcements?
anybody?
want to make an
We'll
announcement?
have folks.
4th of July is so the parade is on the 3rd of July.
yeah.
As far as putting chairs out, at midnight, you can put them out
No,
the
1
night
minute after
before.
midnight.
Yeah, okay, 1 minute after midnight, Alice, you can be out there putting your chairs out, but not a
No,
week in advance. And actually, it was as
Couches.
much as 3 weeks in
Oh,
advance.
really?
Oh, yeah.
couches. They were putting out couches.
Oh, there would be stuff out there right now already.
Yeah, maybe a couch.
And the reason why is that there really is, we've had windstorms where
Yeah.
chairs are rolling down the
Oh,
road or tents
It's
or,
really dangerous.
so I mean, and views, sight lines get blocked if they're putting tents up ahead of
By the
time,
time my 85-year-old mother goes to the parade, there's no place for her to sit.
right?
Well, I'll be walking the parade, so it
I have a
doesn't affect
feeling-
me, but
I have the
still,
feeling there's gonna be more people than usual this year too, because it really does seem like people are more outdoors and more engaged, trying to get back to normal.
Are they doing paddles up this year?
I hear they are,
I have
according to
not
what's
heard.
his face.
So
what's
there's
his
a
face?
paddles up, Paul just said today, every Monday, there's a paddles up group, the kayaks, is starting at Blue Water.
I hope they do the big one.
On Monday, every Monday.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about, the big
Yeah.
one.
So-
Morning, evening?
I haven't heard
I
anything
think
about
you
it.
will.
Oh, I like kayak.
I think,
So anybody can.
I think, probably Google paddles up and see what they say about it, but I didn't know that. So anyways, if they're doing it weekly, I'm assuming they would.
Have the
they
big
would
one.
be doing the big one, yeah.
I think I just heard that Waterkeeper though is pulling out as a major
Sponsor.
sponsor maybe.
Really?
Which
It's too bad.
leaves.
'Cause that was a popular thing.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody loved it.
Does anybody have any other announcements or?
I just got a question. Is Pinto's out of the trash business now and they got Casada trucks going around?
There was
there
a
anything-
merger that happened, so it's just the same company by a different name. So
Oh,
there was
okay.
Some kind of a merger occurred,
Oh,
but nothing really changed other than maybe a name.
oh, like they got married.
All right, well,
There you go.
if there aren't any other announcements, then, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
What, did I hear a
Who's
second?
Oh, a second. I'll second.
She is.
Ed did.
Ed did.
All in
So a
favor?
motion with a second.
Aye.
Aye.
Gotta follow Robert's rules.
See you-
Have a nice July.
Yeah. have
What's the
fun.
date
the
for the
parade,
next
maybe.
one? July what?
Yeah,
be there and-
16th?
gonna be walking, taking.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
See ya.